I trust the people to do the things that I don't know how to do. You know, I just let them do their thing. I sit back and, but extremely excited to talk to you as always. We have some great conversations. One of the things for me and my brand from day one has been aligning with the right people. So for the people listening in and watching in, I've got Kim Michelson from Honest Game. If you haven't heard of Honest Game, you're going to hear about them today, and hopefully you walk away with a better understanding of what they do, and then how we're going to adjust and change the way that the recruiting process is viewed by student athletes, parents, coaches, administrators all over the country. I truly think that this isn't just talk. I think we have the opportunity to be groundbreaking and adjust not only the way that things are done now, but the way things are done moving forward for years to come. And you touched on it before. This is a legacy project, so I'm excited to talk about it. So first things first. We were on a podcast on Monday, so those viewers already know this, but we'll want to touch on we've got some events coming up. Some showcase opportunities. One of the biggest things that we've noticed in the marketplace is a lack of exposure and a lack of verifiable data, right? Like a lot of these recruiting sites, kids can log in and say, hey, I'm 6'4", and they're really 6'1", and there's no source of verification, right? There's no way for a coach or a scout or anybody to be able to trust these metrics because they don't know what's real. And I think that's where our relationship connected, is the fact that both of us are looking at trying to verify and simplify and bring some sense of accuracy and truthfulness, honest game, some truthfulness to the academic side and the athletic side, where a student athlete can't say, hey, I'm a 4.0. Well, no, the test score and the transcript says otherwise. Or I'm 6'2". Well, no, maybe you're 5'11", but you just have big shoes. But whatever the case may be, I'm excited to be on this journey and on this path. So the first place I want to start at is I want to introduce to the viewers that may not know or may have just briefly heard of Honest Game. What is Honest Game? What is number one? What is the company? And number two, I have a second part question. What made you say, hey, this is what I want to do? This is going to be my legacy project?
Well, thank you so much, Justin, for having me. It's a real honor to be here and an honor to be partnering with you. So Honest Game is, we build roadmaps to academic eligibility for all high school student athletes so that they all have equal access to college. We created this because we felt that there was a real need in the market. As you mentioned, real data, real concrete data that could mitigate risk from a college coach's perspective, and really could drive short-term goals for student athletes so that they could build motivation, drive learning outcomes, and help schools and club teams do their job better and save time. And we felt like this whole area of academic eligibility was complicated, ever-changing, and not that transparent. And so we really wanted to bring data and transparency to a process that we felt really was in need of it.
Absolutely. And so explain a little bit of the process of that transparency and that data. Some of the things that, we don't have to go too far in depth, but just, what are the steps that Honest Game takes to make sure that when a coach is seeing the student athlete, they're seeing everything they need to know, and also the student athlete and their parents are seeing, hey, this is where we stand, and this is the roadmap that we need to take moving forward.
Yeah, there's 8 million high school student athletes in the United States, and what we have found was there's about 45% of them, almost 50%, academically ineligible, which brings you to 800,000 or close to 1 million student athletes that are ineligible every year, meaning that they cannot play in NCAA schools. And then when you get to urban markets, it's much more dire. It's about 1 in 2 student athletes that are academically ineligible. So we wanted to solve that, and we knew the only way to solve this, as you mentioned, was with data and technology. So we really scaled the issue. So what we created was the College Athletic Report on Eligibility, which we call the CARE Plan. And the care plan, in a way, it's sort of wraparound services. So this, if a student signs up, or a parent signs up, or a club team signs up, or each student has a profile, and there's wraparound services around that. So their club team would be, club coach would be on that profile. Their potentially their high school coach would be on it, their counselor. So it's sort of, and their parent and themselves. So somebody's going to pull that student aside and say, hey, we noticed that you had these grades, and the data comes directly from the transcript or high school IT departments.
Okay.
So it's verifiable academic data and shows the student athlete exactly where they are and where they need to go to have access to college athletics. Interestingly enough, we initially thought this was just a eligibility tool. And what we're finding is that it's really driving student learning outcomes. And that just by kind of using sport as the carrot and providing student athletes a step-by-step sort of yellow brick road or roadmap, that students know what to do, and it's improving their grades, it's improving their motivation, and it's just been a really exciting sort of journey.
Awesome. And I think that I talked about it. I wrote an article a while back. I had a family member that was one of the ones that you speak about. And I think that one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is when you say, hey, the student athlete was ineligible, it's not just because, of academic, neglectfulness on their part, or because they didn't try hard enough or didn't do the work. Sometimes they just didn't take the right courses, right? They weren't educated on, what needed to be done. And by the time we catch it, often it's too late. And in my situation, because I was educated in the process and had some connections and was able to make some phone calls, we were able to fix that, even though it occurred during his final eligibility, submission to the NCAA. We're talking July, right? So literally we were a week or two away from, if we didn't have the means to get that fixed, him not being able to go play at his college level. So, one of the things that I think is important, a lot of times we don't relate to the issues at hand because we don't have a story that impacts us or a story that ties us to the solution, right? We just see, hey, this is a problem that doesn't bother me, right? Like my kid was eligible. I've never really met anybody that wasn't eligible. What was one of the stories, whether it be your own and being successful as a student athlete or connecting with somebody and knowing somebody that struggled through this? What was one of the stories that fueled your passion to say, this is something I want to jump behind?
Oh, great question. I have quite a few stories. I could take you one. A student athlete that I've worked really closely with, Naquan Jones, plays at Michigan State, and he was an incredibly talented athlete and didn't know the pathway to get there, and had an offer from Michigan State. They stood by him, but he had to take 5 credit recovery courses, 5 of them, in order to actually play, as a freshman. And, if we didn't guide him through that process of sort of what he needed to do, A, he wouldn't be there, and he's doing amazingly well. But B, what if we weren't there? Recently Michigan State played Northwestern, and I saw the game, and I saw him. He was a football player. I saw him on the field. And this is before COVID, actually. But I was there, and I was in the stands, and I was watching him, and I got so much joy out of all the individuals that helped him, because I thought, he's from Evanston, so he's from right where Northwestern is, and I thought to myself, if we couldn't have helped Naquan get on track, he would be home watching this game on this TV. Right. Instead of playing and making a difference. And so, there's a lot of stories like that, like your family member story, like Naquan Jones, and I think you're right. People kind of say, oh, it doesn't affect me. But it's one of those things that affects, as I said, it affects 1 and 2 in urban communities. And there's 8 million student athletes a year. And with college debt at $1.6 trillion, we need to help student athletes find ways to get there and to have equal access. And, an exciting stat that I like to talk about is the fact that in the 1990s, colleges gave out $2.5 million in scholarships, athletic scholarships, and today that number exceeds $3 billion. Wow. Yeah, so how do we connect these students with these opportunities and make sure that they have access? And so I think it's an exciting, bringing, like you said, bringing transparency and authenticity and data to drive better decisions and help people is really exciting. Awesome. No, I've had situations like that where, whether it's,
you coached a kid or you mentored a kid or whatever. For example, one of my guys that I started my career with, in the training space, over a decade ago, seeing him graduate college, and unfortunately, they had to do a virtual graduation this year. But that was more impactful to me than seeing a guy that I worked with on the court playing in an NBA game. Seeing this kid that, and one of his best friends, exact same high school, exact same city, exact same situation. This kid's currently serving time in prison, right? So, knowing that, I never want to take credit and say, hey, if it wasn't for me, this is where he would be. No, I don't think that. I think that, his parents did a phenomenal job. I think that the kid, he understood from a very early age that life is simply a sum of the decisions that you make. And he made a lot of the right decisions. So I don't necessarily look at it and say, okay, I saved this kid's life. But I look at it from a standpoint, like you said, there's a team involved, and it's a team that can help a student athlete, either A, achieve the greatest of their goals and dreams, or B, a team can ultimately fail a child. And I think a lot of times, we're failing these children because we're not giving them the full picture. And I think that that's one of the things that, I love about what Honest Game does is, you're giving them that full vision of this is where you're at currently, this is where you can get to. You're giving them that dose of reality that, a lot of guys, I experienced it last year with a kid that, people have been passing him along and just keeping him on the court because he was beneficial to them. But the reality was, and I said to him, he wanted to come play for me last year. And I told him, I said, look, I'm not helping you if I let you come play for me. I said, what you need to do is you need to right now go online, credit recovery, you need to work. Like the basketball part will take care of itself. You need to work on the academics and get back eligible, get back on track. And there were some other people involved that were like, oh no, you can do that while playing too. But in the grand scheme of things, I think where we're failing our student athletes is we're dangling that carrot of pro athletics in front of them and not realizing and understanding that this life is much bigger than that. Now, the great thing about it is athletics can be the vehicle that drives them to success. It can be the vehicle that helps them to achieve a greater level of education than their parents or their cousins or whatever the case may be, and open up many doors and many opportunities. We're not looking at it as a vehicle anymore. We're looking at it as the entire ecosystem. And I think that once we start to empower the student athletes to understand their options and opportunities that are available to them, and that's why I think that companies like yours are so important in the space, because they show the different options and opportunities that are available for a former athlete. You were a former athlete, you were an athlete yourself, and your life didn't end when your athletic career ended, right? It's like that's when life really began. And how do you transform those lessons that you learned, as an athlete and utilize them to win in a whole different arena? And I think that that's important for our student athletes. That's important for our students in general. As you've built and developed Honest Game and gotten to the point of now here you're in the marketplace, you're presenting to schools, you're presenting to club programs, you're presenting to student athletes and their families. What would you say is kind of the biggest obstacle or hurdle, and not necessarily them going with Honest Game, but them understanding that they need some sort of help, some sort of guidance, whatever it may be, and embracing that really, hey, I'm in potential danger mode?
Right. Well, it's a great question. I think, as I mentioned before, the whole process is very, as far as like registering for the eligibility center, what some people on your show might view it as the clearinghouse, it's very reactive instead of proactive. So it's talking. So sometimes, it's like, well, we don't leave unless there's a fire has started. People don't sort of want to get ahead of it. And the problem is this whole process is reactive. So I think when we talk about this with schools and club teams, I think, and parents and students, people are excited about it. I think that we're kind of shedding light. I mean, it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, I kind of feel like in some ways I'm a bit of a truth seeker. So, it's all about this desire to sort of understand and reflect what is, like what's accurate. and not denying, that there is an issue and fixing it.
Right.
And so I think part of it is just people facing the truth a bit on, hey, this is an issue and I've got to fix it, getting ahead of it. And just that overall understanding of academic eligibility. It's a bit of a convoluted topic and people don't understand it. Once you dig deep, you realize that on average, many high schools have more than 100 courses that are either not, on their transcript, that don't kind of mesh the same and align with the NCAA Eligibility Center. So I think, just to answer your question, I think it's really just this not understanding it and kind of being proactive about it.
Right. And one of the things that we talked about on our call last week is, the emotional side of it. Talk a little bit about, how Honest Game helps to alleviate and pull out some of the emotions that are involved in this topic, which, we're talking life or death for a lot of student athletes, right? Like, it's crazy, but I've talked to student athletes that I know personally that when COVID shut down and they're like, okay, I don't know where I'm going to live, or I'm reliant on my school to eat every day. I'm incredibly in love with The Last Dance. I've been watching that documentary, like religiously. Like, it's recorded, but still, I got to be in front of my TV when it comes on at 9:00. And one of the takes that I haven't heard too many people talk about, but you see Scottie Pippen, who started as a manager on an NAIA team, and people talk about the story. Okay, he transitioned from being a manager to being a starter, to being a lottery pick, to being a Hall of Famer, right? One of the things that they don't touch on a lot of is he grew several inches during his first year at school. And when I was watching the documentary, and they talked about his upbringing and the number of kids in the household, and his dad was disabled, and so it caused me to really think maybe that was the first time he was eating 3 meals a day. And maybe that's why he grew so much, right? Maybe that was the first time he had somebody talking to him about proper nutrition and proper sleep. And that was the first time that, he had, the things that a lot of us take for granted. A lot of us look at as, just definites in life, right? Like, my kids don't wake up ever wondering where their next meal is coming from. And they don't understand that that's not the normal for a lot of people in this world. So not saying that they're unappreciative or not saying that they're bad children because they don't wake up every day like, I'm thankful that I have 3 meals today, but it's just not their reality. And I think for a lot of situations, when it's not our reality, it's hard to relate. It's hard to understand, where a lot of these people are coming from. So it's an emotional topic, the recruiting process, because for a lot of students, it's like, I see the posts all the time. I've had kids that I've talked to, and this is the first person in their family that's going to college. They'll be the first one to graduate. So a lot of times we're looking at changing generational, curses. We're looking at, creating a pathway for their brothers and sisters and children to see that level of academic success. So there's a ton of emotions involved in this, right? Talk to me a little bit about, your viewpoint on eliminating the emotional piece of it and getting down to what it is and then attacking it from there.
Well, one of the reasons I love sport, which is interesting, is that I do think it's the great equalizer. I think about Mandela, who's one of my personal heroes, and what he did. And I think, when you think of sport, and you think of, you may be playing with a teammate that is not able to afford meals or lights or whatever like that. But I think it's one of those things that, regardless of, social class, gender, ethnicity, everybody comes together and you have to work as a team. So I think, that alone teaches you a lot about life if you allow it to. And you are 100% right. Affording college with a $1.6 trillion debt, recruiting, are you good enough? Your identity wrapped up into that. These are incredibly emotionally charged issues. Having a conversation with a student who thinks that they, only want to be a quarterback and has offers from schools for other positions, but this is what they think, or a kid that thinks he or she is the next Michael Jordan and then only gets, the highest level of D2 offers. These are difficult conversations, difficult. But what I love about our tool is that those emotionally charged issues exist in the space, but our tool is incredibly unemotional. It's just bringing data. and giving students and parents and coaches a roadmap to know exactly what you need to do to have access. And so I think it takes the emotional piece out of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that that's, one of the hardest challenges that I have on my end is talking to a student athlete and saying, hey, you know what, I understand. I had a kid recently who I was consulting on the recruiting process, and I got him a very good, junior college offer, full scholarship. Now, without going too far in depth into his situation, but this is a kid that wasn't born here in the United States. So, it's difficult to get financial aid and things and scholarships outside of the athletic side. And this was pre-corona. He had this offer from a Division I JUCO. I had conversations with him. He has the potential to be a Division I ball player. There were some things throughout the course of the season he really didn't have an opportunity to show certain things that coaches are looking for that he's capable of doing, which I think that made it even worse. I think if he wasn't capable, he'd be a little bit more willing to say, okay, I got some more work to do, versus knowing he's capable but just hasn't had a chance to show it, right? And he's like, well, why can't they see that? Why can't they believe in me? And extremely emotional. And trying to explain to him the business side of it. So he hesitated on that junior college offer. Corona hits. Kids are deciding not to go. Kids that were already at that junior college that were planning to go off to college versus staying for another year. Hey, now maybe I think I'll stay another year because, there's so many kids in the transfer portal. So the whole ecosystem shifted on its head. And now he has no options, right? And we're sitting there and, it's one of those situations where you don't want to be that I told you so, but you want to be able to find ways to connect with student athletes that remove the emotional, the emotional side of it, and you're able to speak from a direct fact situation, right? And that's where Blue Sky World, the events that I'm hosting will become a nationwide thing where even if it's not me running it, it's some other companies that'll jump on board and say, hey, that makes sense. We're going to do the same thing in our market, or we're going to do the same thing, here. And now, when college coaches or when you're evaluating, you can look at the stats and the figures and say, okay, I understand you think you're Division I, but every kid on their roster, this is the median height and weight, right? This is where, their wingspan is. This was their vertical. This was their percentage, when they were shooting in these drills. We're able to take that data and just say unemotionally, hey, you know what? We got work to do. And it's no longer Justin's opinion that's telling me that, and I got to prove Justin wrong. It is what it is, and I got to get better, and I got to fix that. And I think that, academics, you have a great opportunity to do that because it is very, basketball and football are very, they're very relative recruitments. I tell people that all the time. I can see something in a player that nobody else sees. Doesn't mean that I'm right. Doesn't mean that they're wrong. For me, it's just versus when you're looking at Olympic sports, the time is the time, right? Flat out. If you're a sprinter, I can look at your time. Okay, you can come run here. I don't need to watch film. I don't need to come sit down and watch you. If you're a swimmer, if you're, whatever, there's other opportunities. Whereas in a lot of team sports, it's very, it comes down to the way we see it. It's the way that each individual coach views it. And because it's relative and because there's no standard, because there's no, metric to what makes sense or what makes a person a Division I athlete, it leaves everything up to opinion. And it's very subjective. And now you have student athletes that don't want to, face that hard reality. And I think that that's something that, with time, is something that we can change and we can benefit from. And I think that, the model that you've created with time, I think it will become standard, nationwide. You and I talked about it. I think ideally in a Blue Sky world, a student athlete should walk into his high school as a freshman. He should get a course catalog and he should know, hey, I want to compete at the college level. These are the courses I need to take because in my course catalog, they're highlighted with an NCAA logo next to them, right? In a Blue Sky world, it would be that easy. Unfortunately, it's not. And there's so much that would have to take place. And what your software does is it eliminates the need for a school district to hire, a new person that all they do is handle, student athletes that are going through the guidance office. And some school districts can afford that. Others, the target ones, the ones that are having a lot of the issues that we're talking about, a lot of them are already in debt, right? They don't have the money to add somebody else on. right? It eliminates the need, to have somebody sit there and go one-to-one and figure out, hey, is this kid eligible? Is he not eligible? What courses did he take? And a lot of times, like you said, it's not as cut and dry and as clear as it could be and should be. I could go on and on and on about why I absolutely love, the service that you provide and love Honest Game. I think that, club programs, no matter the sport, I think high schools, no matter the sport, I think student athletes and their families, no matter the sport, should be taking the time to research and figure out what Honest Game is. And if nothing else, get educated on the eligibility process. And just start that conversation. I think if nothing else, we're going to spark some conversation and some dialogue that needs to be had surrounding being academically eligible, and that not being a secondary conversation or not being an afterthought, being in the forefront. But as we wrap up, what is something that you want whoever is seeing this and hearing this to know about Honest Game? One thing, if they could only take away one little tidbit, what is the thing that you think that they have to grasp and have to walk away with?
I'm going to try to make that small here because there's a lot of things. I think a couple things, I guess, if I may. Number one, we're a public benefit corp. So you said something really interesting. You said eligibility, instead of being at the side of it, sort of in the middle. And I think that's the next transformation in business. So I guess I would say to all club teams, in the future, in order sort of resiliency and sort of to maintain in the long term throughout the 21st century, is going to be looking at the holistic athlete, looking at them academically, because that academics definitely impacts where they're going to be able, what offers they're going to get, athletically, socially, emotionally, and sort of looking at the student as a whole. And I think that's the next transformation, and Honest Game fits right into that. We are your academic partner. We will make sure that, every student athlete has access to college athletics if they follow our roadmap. So I'd say that is the direction that we're going. It's sort of no more just, I joke around about this, Justin, as you know, it's not just capitalist when you look at this sort of news and we see politics right now, or just socialist. It's this melding of the two, which is doing well by doing good. Absolutely. And I think every club team out there, every high school, they want to do good by these students. And this will give you a tool that is incredibly affordable, and will bring data, save you time, save you money, and most importantly, help student athletes.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope that, I got a lot out of this. Just every time I hear you talk about Honest Game, I get inspired. I think about the student athletes that I've encountered that didn't have something like this, and knowing that it exists now. You're going to see me screaming from the mountaintops about it, because I think that it is that important. I think that it's a game changer without a doubt. So thank you for taking the time to expound and explain that a little bit better than I could, because I get that all the time. Well, what is it, right? Why do you like it so much, or why do you? So them being able to, and people being able to see and hear that directly from you, and this is it's the first, but it's not going to be the last interview that we're going to do, or the last bit of work that we'll do in promoting and marketing and speaking about something that I'm the type of person, like if I'm passionate about something, if I believe in it, then it becomes a passion project of mine, and I'd rather help people that I believe in for nothing than to get paid to help somebody or build up a company that I don't believe in. And I think that your reasons for doing this, your why, it's amazing, and it aligns with the reason why I got into coaching. It aligns with the reason why I've done everything in my career up to this point. So I'm excited to be partnering with you. I'm excited for this journey. I don't see this as being a short journey. I'm thinking, like, what will this landscape look like a decade from now, when we can look back on these beginning stages and laugh about how small we thought, right? Like when we're saying, hey, we think maybe we can do this, and I know 10 years from now it's going to be so much bigger than what we even envisioned it could possibly be. So I'm excited to get to that, right? And I think that right now our goal is to give ourselves time and to be be locked in on the details and the delivery and the just really making it so great and such a great experience for student athletes and their families that we get that time to be able to change the world as we like. So thanks for everything. I appreciate you. And hey, now it's time to get to work.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and shedding light on good and changing the world. Thank you for all you do, Justin.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.